Hey guys, it's Miss Checka. I'm here in Tennessee at the birthplace of Sequoyah. Pretty much a personal hero. I mean, what can I say? The guy came up with a writing system for his entire language on his own. And you may say to yourself, what's the big deal, Miss Checka? I come up with stuff all the time where, I know how to write. Everybody knows how to write. But my friends, it's actually like a genius accomplishment. So let me tell you about this guy. First of all, he was born here in Tennessee. This is where Cherokee traditionally lived. This is the late 1700s, early 1800s. And, he didn't start out, it wasn't super obvious that he was going to be a genius. He started out as just kind of being a normal dude. He was a blacksmith and a silversmith. But he spoke a language, Cherokee, which had no written writing system, at all. Nobody could read or write because there was no writing system to read. And this is kind of a problem in his line of work because as a silversmith, when you do a silversmith, you make something out of silver that's special. It's really expensive. People pay up front. But when you do blacksmith work for people, a lot of people, they're working people, they're farmers, they don't necessarily have money up front. They have to wait until their crops come in. It takes a long time. So you need some kind of record keeping system. So Sequoyah came up with his own number system. So that's how he kept track of who owed him money. But in the course of doing this, he gets interested in just kind of writing in general. He sees all of these colonists and they have a writing system, well, I guess at that point they're not colonists, they're European settlers. But at any rate, they have this writing system. He thinks that's pretty cool, and he also thinks why don't we have that? We speak Cherokee. Why can't we write Cherokee? So he sets about on his own, coming up with a writing system. No university. There's not a government that's telling him to do this. There's not years of scholarship and all this sort of thing of evaluating different writing system everywhere. The guy just figures this out on his own, and it takes him 12 years, which is a tiny amount of time for the project that he went on. So basically, first he thinks about okay, we can have any kind of writing system that we want. So one way that you could do it is to have an alphabet. That's what we have in English. And if you have ever tried to learn to write, in kindergarten, first grade, it's not a great writing system. It's a really difficult writing system because in the alphabet, one letter can have 4 or 5 different sounds that it makes. Think about how many different sounds an A makes. A, ah, this sort of thing. And also, sometimes our letters don't, the letter W is not anything like wah, which is what the sound makes. You see what I'm saying? Okay, so, no alphabet. So he thinks the first idea that he has is that he's going to come up with a symbol for every word in the language, right? So this is called a logogram. This is very similar to Chinese characters. So maybe he's going to have a symbol and it's going to be bird, right? Works. Except that, well, which kind of bird are you talking about? When you actually try to come up with one symbol for every word, it turns out that this is almost an impossible task because there's thousands and thousands and thousands of potential words, right? So then he thought, okay, no, how about one symbol for every idea? You try and do that. You'll come up with the same problem. Meanwhile, as he's doing this, his wife thinks that he's nuts. She thinks that maybe he's practicing witchcraft. I don't know if maybe your dad or somebody in your family has a crazy project that they do in the basement or the attic that freaks everybody else out. This is what happened. So she actually took all of his rough drafts and burned them. She was like, no witchcraft in my house. So he has to start from scratch. And then he decides that what he's going to do, he's going to really listen. All right, he's going to listen. So he goes out, and you can see behind me are all these rivers and fields, all this nature, and he hears the birds, and he hears that when the birds are singing, they all have particular, songs and sounds, and you can break up their songs into discrete sounds. So he starts listening to his family, and he starts listening to Cherokee, not just in terms of words, but in the sounds that you hear in the language, and he thinks, I'm going to make symbols for syllables. Now, in modern linguistics, we have a name for that. That's a syllabary. So that's what he came up with. He came up with a writing system that was, each symbol was one syllable. And he came up with about, I think it's like 86. And boom, writing system. This is kind of the only time in history that one person has come up with, out of the blue, a writing system for an entire language on his own. But it's incredibly, incredibly successful. By the 1820s, the Cherokee Nation adopts this writing system, the syllabary, and the Cherokee people rapidly become more literate than the European settlers around them. So they actually, the writing system was so good, people start to learn to write it. So it's an incredible accomplishment. It's a really interesting guy. I'm going to end on a sad note, which is, you might be thinking to yourself, Miss Checka, why are you in Tennessee? Everybody knows all of